Woo! Way to go! Yay! There you go, Betsy. Welcome.
I'm Betsy Blankenbaker. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, and I had a really great childhood here. One of my favorite things to do was to spend the summers at Riviera Club, and I was also on their swim team for 10 years. I love the Indy 500. I have been there almost 25 times, and I started going at the age of 8. And we lived in a neighborhood where the 4 houses around us, between the 4 families, there were 19 kids. So there was lots of action going on the whole time. And I had a super fun mom who, there were 5 of us, I was number 4, and before we'd go to school in the morning, she would line us up at the back door, and she'd go, 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, now go, go, go. And she'd open the door and we'd just run out to school. And it was such a great way to start the day. Oh gosh, and Mom also had clubs at the house. She would have, we did a knitting club, we did a cooking club, she did a manners club, and everybody knew if you came to my house, you could not swear or you wouldn't be invited back. My parents also hosted, I think, the only non-alcohol New Year's Eve party in the city. And it was interesting because I didn't know any better, so people would come, and then about 9 o'clock, everybody would leave. Even our minister would leave. And I just thought like New Year's was over then. I didn't realize till later that everybody celebrated till midnight. So, you know, with all those kids around, stuff must have been happening with the parents, but we did not talk about sex in my family. And I can remember one time, the only time Mom referred to genitals, she just quietly pointed and she said, "Down there." So you can imagine she was not really thrilled, or she was shocked when my first book came out, and it was called Autobiography of an Orgasm. I know it was not my mother's dream for her daughter to write this book. But the book was an important book for me to write. It was a spiritual memoir about my 5 years of researching my body and orgasm as a way to heal from sexual assault. And when the book came out, my mom said she was not going to read it, and I completely understood. My mom is actually here tonight, and many of you might know her. She was a former Indiana state senator. She was in the Senate for 12 years. And I really appreciate her coming tonight. And when I told her the subject matter, I said, "Mom, could you send me a picture so I can post it? Because many people probably haven't seen you for several years, and that way they'll know who you are." And this is the picture she sent. I don't think she's still ready to have that sex talk. So, when the book came out, one of the things Mom said to me, because I had kept all these secrets my whole life, and she said, "Well, we just don't talk about those things." And I could hear her mother and her grandmother and all the grandmothers and women in our family and men in our family saying, "We don't talk about those things." Being positive, is it only saying things that are happy, or is it saying things that are true? So I'd like to invite a different conversation around positive thinking tonight, because I think it starts with positive feeling. And orgasm is kind of like positive thinking for the body. After all, you don't say no, no, no during orgasm. You say yes, yes, yes. And I was doing that. For more than half my life, I was saying yes, 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 but I was not feeling a thing. I was smiling, and I was faking it. My mom understands what it's like to take risk. When she was in the Indiana Senate, one of the very important bills she passed was a child support bill, which went after the so-called deadbeat dads, and if they didn't pay child support, they'd have their wages garnished. This was 1992, and that night when she went to bed, a bullet was shot through her bedroom window, and it landed just above her head where she was sleeping. She knows what it's like to take risk. But she continued to work for the marginalized voices, especially women, children, and the elderly, and she just inspired me. You know, I was a teenager then, but she's continued to inspire me through my whole life. So I finally decided to take a stand for a marginalized voice in my life, my vagina. So by the age of 40, I could repeat every word to my 10 favorite songs. I could tell you in detail how to make my favorite meal. I could tell you how to jump the battery on your car. I could not tell you how to give me an orgasm. 1 in 3 people in this room, 1 in 3 women in this room, will experience abuse against their bodies during their lifetime. And like me, for more than half of us, it's before the age of 18. It might be physical, it might be emotional, but mostly what happens is we don't speak up. I was ashamed and I kept it a secret. What's interesting is about 1 in 3 women in this room could also be clinically diagnosed with female sexual dysfunction. And what's interesting to me is that both of those statistics are so close. And what I didn't know at the time is when you experience trauma against your body, it stays in the cells of your body. So unless you retrain your body to feel good again, you end up carrying that trauma with you throughout your life. Your body's in this constant state of fight or flight. It doesn't feel safe. And so for me, for over 40 years, I was carrying this energy and not realizing it was making me sick. I had frequent sore throats. I had strep throat a lot. I had the flu a lot. And, you know, by the time I was 40, I was also diagnosed with depression. And I remember the doctor put me on Prozac. And at the time, I was like, am I depressed or is my vagina depressed? And I also thought, I wonder if these sore throats have anything to do with not speaking up. So at the age of 45, I took myself on as a science project. I decided to see if I could find my orgasm. I was living in Indiana at the time, and there was no way I was going to do the research here. But to start, I Googled how to have an orgasm. And I do not advise that you do that. None of the information was helpful, and some of it was quite shocking. I then started to read books, and I read books called The Easy Orgasm, The Elusive Orgasm, Instant Orgasm, Extended Massive Orgasm, The Real Orgasm, Tantric Orgasm, Sensual Orgasm, and I even read a book and followed the diet. It was the multi-orgasmic diet. None of it worked. So the next thing I did, I decided to take courses, but I was living in Indiana, and there was no way I was going to go to a course here and show up and go, hi, my name's Betsy, I'm trying to find my orgasm. So instead, it worked out perfect because my oldest son, Sam, was just going to school in New York City, and so I dropped him off at his dorm for college, and that weekend I went to a course on orgasm in New York City. Nobody would know me in New York. So when I was younger, I was a swimmer, so I understood that you could train your body. And I decided to take up orgasm as my sport. I just had no idea if I'd be any good. So the first course I went to promised you 1 orgasm, and then I saw another course and it promised you 4 orgasms, 4 different kinds, and then another course said that there were 9 different kinds of orgasms, and then one of the experts said there were 70 different types of orgasms. That was shocking, and I was just looking for one. So before I go further into talking about my research, and out of respect for my mom, because we still have not had that sex talk, instead of using the correct terms to describe my genitals, I'm going to compare them to the Indy 500 racetrack. So imagine that the racetrack is the vulva, and the infield, the interior of the track, is my vagina. And that little place, the pit stop is the clitoris. So basically, I was working with these experts who were trying to guide me into how much time I should spend on the racetrack or in the infield or on the pit stop in order to win the race. So one of the experts told me, you should spend a lot more time in the pit stop. And I was like, huh. And then another one said, no, actually, you should spend time in the infield, but in a special place called the G spot. And I was like, that must be like the snake pit or something. And then, and then one expert said, well, actually, you need to strengthen your infield. And something you can do is to use a jade egg, insert a jade egg, real jade egg, about the size of your breakfast egg, into your infield. So I was desperate, so I got this jade egg and I inserted it. The idea is you're supposed to wear it a little bit each day, and it can harmonize your vagina infield. And the idea is to keep building up and wearing it, throughout the day, maybe during housework, and then maybe you can even wear it out in public. And so one day, but you don't feel it. Once it's in there, you don't feel it. And I had built up to like wearing it all day. And one day I was in New York City, and I was going to visit my son for lunch, and it was in and I couldn't feel it. So I was like, you know what? I think my vagina is really feeling empowered, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to leave it in. And it was a really beautiful spring day, and I had on a long dress and no panties, and I, walked down Fifth Avenue, and I'm feeling so great. And all of a sudden, I felt something dropping. And I started walking like this, and just until I had to stop, and I laid an egg on Fifth Avenue. So, the real change came when I stopped listening to the experts and I started listening to myself. What I was really doing was tracking the sensations that felt good in my body, and I had never done that before. So I just focused on tracking the sensation that felt good, and the next sensation that felt good, and the next sensation that felt good. And what was interesting, as I started to track those sensations in my body, my life started to feel better too, because I was on a daily basis, I was making decisions in my life that felt good. I was, trying to not be so busy. I was letting go of friendships that probably weren't too healthy, and I started making choices that felt good in life. And what was interesting was, I did find my orgasm, and it was medicine for me, but more importantly was I discovered a life that actually felt good, and instead of just finding my orgasm, I created this orgasmic life. What ended up happening was by the end of all the research, after 5 years, I was a lot happier. I was a lot healthier. I'm never sick anymore. And I am the most creative I've ever been in my life. I'm releasing my 4th book in a couple months. So, my mom is actually here tonight, and she's here with her book club. And they just informed me that the next book they're choosing is my book, Autobiography of an Orgasm. And Mom, I just want to say what a privilege it is to be your daughter. You've been an inspiration throughout my life. And I am so honored that I started my life by coming through your vagina. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.